G'day everyone, this is Rangadad, not financial advice, just the way I'm looking at the market. This is just my daily market scan. Sorry, I'm running a little late. Um, getting the volume leaders stuff ready. Yeah, it was a bit of a choppy day on the S&P 500 today. This is a decent sign for Bitcoin. Um, First thing I didn't touch on yesterday, there was two things I didn't touch on in the live. It was a long one. First day back, more than a week. Sentiment, basically, smart money is still increasing, which is fantastic. We want to see that. Dumb money is resetting, and dumb money hasn't been this low for quite a while, actually. And I suspect this is probably going to come down a little bit more, because I think they're going to try and fake out this head and shoulders. So as I said yesterday, I think that's probably the play at the moment on the S&P 500 now. Bitcoin, there is cumulative volume delta is still increasing here, which is a really good sign. We are coming into some fairly strong resistance levels here. It looks like it's trying to break through that. There is a fair bit of red on the bid-ask delta, but we are just still plowing through all the red that's come before this. So I mean, looking at this, you'd kind of expect a little bit of a pullback. Open interest did drop quite a lot through this little choppy area here, but it has started to pick back up again as well. So this to me looks like a bit of a bull flag. It looks like the market's really trying to break through a pretty big resistance level. So I would expect at this stage pullbacks to be met with buying demand. So just a quick look at Sol on this as well. So Sol's been really good. Sol sort of broke through some key levels. This is still an interesting level for Sol here. But for the time being, funding rates are still positive. It's still getting a fair bit of buying happening at these highs. So yeah, it's not looking too bad. And Sol's actually had a lot more significant increase in the cumulative volume delta on both the spot and the futures. So that's a really good sign for the market in general. And I mentioned in the Discord yesterday that the AI alts were looking very strong yesterday. I've actually got a price target now. I'm not super set on this price target for Bitcoin yet, because there is the 97K level, which we're at now, is a really kind of important level for Bitcoin. Just because this was a lower high on the daily. Now, if we break above this and sort of retest and clear that, then I'm actually, well, I mean, 105 is a very strong target for a pullback, but we may actually get something above the 110 level on this push. So I'll get to why in a minute, but there's been a lot more selling come into the charts as this has come up, which is good to see. I mean, we want sellers to come in so that it does attract price to those levels. But we have here, so this level here is sort of the 105.5 level. Decent sort of sellers in this area. It may even just push straight to 100K and basically 101,000 and then pull back. If it does that and then puts in a lower high, probably somewhere around where we're at the moment, then that would actually be very bullish. And you're talking only on the 1 hour or the 4 hour sort of lower higher lows, then that would actually be pretty bullish. Now, liquidation levels. So we do have decent levels all the way up to 100K, basically. We just zoom that out. I think it was 3 months ago was the biggest picture. Yeah, I mean, there's some decent stuff up to the high 100,000, so that's certainly a good target. Obviously there is some decent targets up around those new all-time highs as well. But for the time being, there is still this 89 sort of K area. A lot of different people are coming to that 89K conclusion on a whole heap of different ways from what I've seen of different videos. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this as a fake out to the upside on Bitcoin. Okay, let's have a quick look. See, we got a bit of interest here on Coinbase, which is good. Decent sized trade there, which did lead to a bit of a pump. Good buy there. Not huge, like it hasn't made the top 100, but that did obviously. So not bad buying here. We need to stay above this level on Coinbase. If we break below here, just the amount of trading that's happening in these levels would suggest that we're actually going down further. And I'd say actually the 80K mark comes into play. This is the 2x leverage on Coinbase. Don't know why it's not showing that. Anyway, decent trade there. Certainly hasn't led to a big sell-off. This was a pretty good one, whoever did that one. Yeah, I think in general, this is what you want to see around the lows on Coinbase. I might just go to 30 days, see where we're at. Okay, so yeah, decent trade right at the lows here when you look at it from that perspective. Oops. IBIT, same sort of thing, getting a bit of interest here. The 6th largest trade there. It'd be better if this was sort of in this area or one of these areas. Just these guys tend to get it pretty right, but it is what it is. Let's just go back 30 day. I'd like to see a bit more, like just given there was that much clustering around here, it'd be good to have a bit more in these areas on Coinbase before. We call this as a sort of a macro bottom on Bitcoin. That's a pretty massive trade. Technically, it is at the lows of this area. There has been a lot of profit taking up through here, though, so would like to see a little bit more happening in the dark pools, but at the moment, I would say that's supporting a move to the upside. Energy sector, good moves on that still. Metals and mining, good moves on that today. A little bit choppy with the rest of the market, but let's go out to the 7-day, sorry. Yeah, I mean, it's starting to look strong. This has been beaten down over a month. That's different. I mean, Tesla dropped today. I think that's probably pushing that down. XLP didn't drop as much. So this is actually going to point to the XLY, XLP indicator pulling back some, which is going to be in agreement with the general market pulling back. So let's go over here. Good, solid green move on Bitcoin. Stochastic momentum's out of that bearish control zone now. Still haven't got a bump on BBWP, but don't necessarily need that straight away on the first decent candle. But if we close above this wick, then that's going to be a pretty good sign. What we don't want is just a turnaround at somewhere around the halfway point here. And I'll be looking out for that, especially around that value area high. That's going to be a critical level for us to see what happens, which is around that 100K mark. Global liquidity is still dropping. I know the Fed has been injecting some liquidity into the market, buying stocks and stuff like that. That actually does tend to lead to bounces in Bitcoin as well. So even though they wouldn't be buying Bitcoin specifically, it can be quite bullish for Bitcoin. So it'd be good if this didn't turn into a vector as a daily candle, because we haven't had on the shorter time frames. Shorter time frames. Most of the vectors have been recovered pretty well on the way up. That one there, that little wick, is probably a little bit of a magnet, but it's not huge. Most of it's been recovered. You're probably into this level here, which is actually your 618 fib retracement on this move. That's probably more of a target at this stage, somewhere in there between your 0.5 and your 618, just wick to wick. Now, this move may not be done yet either, so that one might be a little bit of a target as well, but generally, like most of the way up here, even these vector candles in here have been recovered by the next vector candle, and then this one here has recovered everything else. So yeah, it's interesting. Over the past day, it's been quite good for recovering those vectors. So kind of not, just based on that alone, not expecting massive pullbacks. Like this looks like a legit move to the upside. Okay. I'll just expand this a bit. And it's actually supported like this green line here, that's still got a fair way to go to the upside on the hourly. So I am expecting a bit more out of this. It is a little like it's getting close to reaching a peak on the hourly, and if we do turn around soon here, that would put in some bearish divergence on cyclic RSI. Don't worry about these labels. It's not doing anything. But generally, the cyclic RSI is relatively high at the moment. One more sort of push up, I think, would lead to a bit of a pullback. But generally, like once this indicator here, this green one gets up above that one level, it can stay there for quite a while. It can rip back down like this as well, but that's not what we're looking at here. We're looking at something more like this. So yeah, it can have some pullbacks, go a bit sideways, but as long as it stays relatively high, we can push on quite a bit more. That was the push up to the all-time high. Now, I don't necessarily think we'll get an all-time high on this particular push, but it'll be good to be knocking on that door, because we'll probably need to knock on that quite a few times to actually break through. Keeping in mind what Crown came up with the other day in his analysis, that an early high in January for Bitcoin can actually mean that we get a decent pullback as well, which would potentially be into that 89 to 80, 86-ish. But we could potentially go even lower if that head and shoulders does actually play out. So that's shorter time frames for Bitcoin as well. The other thing I missed yesterday was the pivot levels. So the monthly pivot levels have obviously come in. Funnily enough, there is a pivot level down here about 86,600. That would be a decent target at some stage during the month if we do pull back at all. At the moment, we may not. We don't have to pull back. But at the same time, apart from like the first 3 Januaries in Bitcoin's history, after 2 positive Januaries, the rest of them have been negative. Like when you get 2 positive Januaries in a row, you tend to get a third one that's negative. So something to watch out for. This run could actually, like the other pivots at 99,500. These certainly aren't levels where you get exact bounces, but you tend to get pretty close. So if we do confirm above this and continue with this run, which kind of looks a little bit likely, notice how this looks a little different on the 15. It does look a little overextended, but at the same time, this hasn't been calibrated for this yet. So yeah, in general, that sign there is quite bullish. It looks like it wants to move to this next pivot. So Q's, NASDAQ. Interesting break on the NASDAQ. You could actually almost draw this as a, oh, that's an interesting level there. But I have that there. honestly, if NASDAQ closes below the 50 EMA here, it's not looking good. Probably would suggest this probably should have been a little bit higher here. And that would be the first break of that trend line. It's actually a kind of a diagonal head and shoulders as well, which can play out. Brings us back into that 19.5, which is a 200 EMA. Yeah. Another interesting thing on Bitcoin, Crown was looking at, I think it was something to do with the 5 and the 21 EMA that he uses have crossed, and every time that happens, every time in CME's history on Bitcoin, so 18 times out of 18, it's actually led to a retrace to the 55 EMA on the daily. So that currently, I'll just let you know what that is on CME. The 55 was actually sitting somewhere around 88, 89. To be exact. It doesn't happen straight away, but typically any bounces will not make another all-time high, and they will pull back to the 80, like the 50 EMA, which currently is at 89,000. So, and that'll probably come up. That'll probably move up a little bit. So yeah, it's looking like some stage in January probably 89K will be hit. So it's worthwhile taking profits when we see that opportunity. See a potential reversal on probably the 1 hour and the 4 hour, what you're looking for, depending on how you want to trade it. So 4 hours are actually getting pretty overextended here, but I actually like the fact that BBWP's still headed up pretty substantially. I'd probably be waiting for this to hit some other key levels. So this isn't really key level territory. We've only just broken the 50 EMA and even the 800 EMA. Well, is that 800? Oh no, that's 100. Sorry. So 50 and the 100. We're above all the key moving averages on the 4 hour on CME. So a little bit of a pullback is likely, but I think it's going to stay in the bullish control zone for a little bit here and potentially keep going. And realistically, your target of 105, these vector candles in here, that's where I'm getting that from. At 105, if we get that high, like I'll probably take some money off the table at about 100K as well, if we get that far, just because it will find some resistance around here. And then I'll take the rest off, to be honest with you, at 105, and then just wait. If we break all-time highs from there, then I'll jump back in. But at this stage, the stats are probably pointing more towards a sort of a lower high in here somewhere, and then a further pullback in Jan. All right, let's go back to the daily. So the Qs. Yeah, I mean, on the mini futures, or on the futures, 21K. It was interesting today, like NASDAQ was up over 1% at one stage in pre-market. Let's just go 15-minute. Oh, you fucker. see it better on this. What the fuck? Anyway, yeah, that's it there. So Nasdaq was up from there. At one stage, it was up 1.1% pre-market, and then it's just started pulling back and hasn't really stopped. A little bit choppy. This is an interesting push into the close, though. Does seem to be a little bit of buying going on there. Yeah, very interesting. Anyway, basically at the moment, any rips are being sold off intraday. We want to see that trend sort of reverse, and we want to see that relatively soon. But at the moment, you've still got to be bearish on Nasdaq and S&P, from what I can tell. It's just momentum wise, it's definitely broken some pretty key levels, and global liquidity is still not jumping up. It's only whether, like, this indicator may not pick up the liquidity that the Fed's injecting at the moment. But yeah, it's an interesting level. S&P 500, a little bit of a fake out on the head and shoulders break there. So that's actually a good sign. You kind of want Wall Street to be just picking up the break of this level. I do think this box is probably the target, though, before you get any major sort of bounce. Actually, let me move that up a little, just because the gap closes there. That's a very good level for S&P 500 to come into, and to expect a bounce there. Mainly just because every man and his dog's talking about that head and shoulders. So I have a feeling it's probably going to have a lot of options come in, and they're probably going to short squeeze everyone if we do come into this level here. The equal weight actually looks a lot better. It's certainly holding its own at the moment. I'd like to see a turnaround in stochastic momentum. It's still sort of angled to the downside at the moment, but it's holding reasonably well at some key levels as well. So we have nearly closed this gap. We want to close that gap, would be handy. But yeah, S&P 500, like, still doesn't look good. We're below some pretty major trend lines here. Yeah, there ain't a lot holding this up from a trend line perspective at all. That's my main concern at the moment, that this could actually go deeper than what I think. But at the moment, good level for a bounce here on the equal weight S&P. IWM's at a really good level as well. I think that's kind of showing that we may find some support soon. You could look at that as a bear flag too. So just be mindful of that, like some sideways action. We could see further drop. But at this stage, it's showing signs that, at the moment, it's still angled down as well. So you can't really be bullish until you see stochastic momentum turn back to the upside. XLI is still struggling. It's at a good level for a bounce, but it is still struggling. Probably looks like it wants to pull back a little bit further. This XLI has been slammed. It's yeah, there's a lot of signs out there that the economy's not great. That is a very interesting level. So XLY, XLP is just broken to the downside. That's almost a measured move back into this high here. Again, that's suggesting potentially more downside, but the equal weight is still holding. I would say like this 20 moving average on the daily has been reasonable support for it, even though it can wick down through there or have a fake out through there. It's just at the moment when you tend to see it slowing down to the upside and it tests this a couple of times, you kind of expect it to break through there. So this here, stochastic momentum's heavily to the downside. You kind of, this is actually looking like it's the start of something bigger on the stock market in general. Like that there on KRE does not look good. The only thing here is that we've almost closed this gap and there is some vector candles to the upside, but in terms of when that happens, we could still actually see a move down to the 200 EMA, down to 56. There is a vector candle here and a gap that kind of would attract price. So, and momentum is to the downside, still in the bearish control zone. The only thing is BBWP is dropping off, so you'd expect the move to be slower. Like whatever move we get to the downside, if we get one, would probably be the last of it. Yeah, it's a pretty red start to the year, pretty red finish to last year as well. Home construction is still struggling, probably going to close that gap. This is going to be a key support level. That level there for home construction is a very important one. I'm actually going to put it there just because of the gap close. This may actually form a gigantic head and shoulders over time. You'll know the economy is pretty well done if we do that. I think if home construction can't make a new high, that's when I'm going to be pulling everything out of the market. XHB, well, pulling everything that I got long anyway. This is still, I guess, kind of playing out, but we haven't had that bounce yet. The fact that it's just fallen straight through and we haven't come back up here. I guess that's the target for the bounce, would be somewhere up in here. And you'd be sort of reconfirming a few different levels if you did that and then move to the downside. That'd look pretty bad. Semis, just choppy shit at the moment. You'd be disappointed if you're in semis. Gold, DJI gold, I mean. See that too, another break of this sort of key level in here. And that's a decent break. Again, it's suggesting the economy's shit and S&P will move lower. Which it's all actually pointing towards the head and shoulders on the S&P actually playing out, which isn't going to look great for Bitcoin, but that could be sort of what we get with Bitcoin in terms of we get a pump up and then we get a drop similar to the rest of the market. looking pretty nasty across the board, to be honest. VIX has a little increase in it today. Yeah, nothing huge, but I mean, technically, if you're going to go off momentum, VIX should increase a bit from here as well. So, and this is the thing that's kind of a little bit broken at the moment. The skew jumped a little bit yesterday, but the market's overall down. So the skew's sort of staying high. If we actually close the skew, if we get a skew read below these levels here, the 161 level, that'll actually be pretty bearish, I would think. DAX. Yeah, DAX will be interesting at these levels too. I think it's actually, I think it's probably going to have a pullback in the next few days. But DAX has been bucking the trend of the S&P 500 at the moment. Chinese market's pulling back again. Bounce right off the middle there. This could come a bit lower. And I say that because stochastic momentum, if they don't have a green day today, momentum's going to be down and crossed. And you're probably going to get BBWP increasing above that signal line. UK 100 is bucking the trend a bit. I'd be surprised if this breaks out to sort of new all-time highs. If it does, I would look at that as probably a fake out. And this potentially as a gigantic Wyckoff distribution. Same with the Japanese market. This could end up being a big Wyckoff distribution. TLT. Again, finding a bit of support around here with some pretty decent trades around there. I think TLT will pump soon. Problem is I can't remember what it was. The jobs read last night suggested that there aren't as many people looking for work or something. So it means the Fed can keep rates higher for longer if they're using the employment argument. But I have a funny feeling they won't because of all the other things that are wrong with the market. They'll find some excuse to drop interest rates. I hope they do anyway, otherwise the crash is just going to be even bigger. Yeah, high yield. I mean, it's still trudging up. This bond indicator is not looking great. Again, I kind of expect that to come back into this level. At least retest this support level. So that's looking bearish as well. In general, there's still a bearish tendency on the market. I mean, this is interesting in that we've now broken this low here. The reason why I say that's interesting, generally, once you break that first decent low after it comes out of that inversion, that's kind of when the recession normally kicks off in a big way. Don't have good reads there. Like just here, June 07. If we show show this. So June 07, we still went a little bit higher, but there was a decent pullback after that on the S&P 500. Don't know if I'll be able to measure that properly. About 7% from there. And typically you don't go back up to uninversion. So realistically, these things were uninverted for quite a while before we actually saw the top on the S&P 500 towards the end of 07. So the market can still do funny things after that yield curve inversion. So for people that say that's broken, don't listen to them. It's not broken. But yeah, we could still have a 6 months or so until we actually find the top in the markets. All right, copper. Same sort of deal. It really needs to find some support here. I have a feeling it will. I actually think copper might find some support off this trend line down around the $4 mark. $4 is a good number as well. There's a lot of support over here. Actually, that was just the head and shoulders break. So yeah, that would be a head and shoulders break, but the amount of support around the $4 mark, I'd be surprised if that didn't actually lead to a bounce relatively soon. Maybe into the higher 395 mark. Gold, nice bounce on gold. It is going to come into a bit of supply here, I think. So, wrong one. Just reached the value area high. If we break that, which there's every chance we will, just looking at momentum, still got a fair bit to run. BBWP is not going with it, which is a little sad, but I would say we're probably going to come back up to some of these vectors in here and potentially run higher. Like gold's got basically 6 months to get to 3,000. In my opinion, if it doesn't by then, it's probably not going to. But that's definitely a target because it will come down with the rest of the market as well. That's typically what happens with gold. We'll just have a look at the 2008. What happened around there? Are we? Gold actually went on a run after that, didn't it? Well, that's actually interesting. So 07, gold actually started spiking as the market was topping. Gold continued to make new all-time highs. But yeah, after that first decent pullback, so March 08, once the actual sort of recession got called, gold started to pull back with everything else, but it didn't actually pull back past the levels that it was at when people were buying it in this area here, which was basically the market was trying to, like the market should have realistically crashed around there, the way that it was looking. So that's an interesting. Gold really went nuts. Huh. Okay, could be wrong about that. Gold may actually go on an even bigger run. Just yeah, I don't know. I'll keep mine for the time being. Put it that way. Yeah, gold's looks like it might be an okay recession hedge, which is probably why all the central banks and stuff are buying it up. Gold silver ratio. Silver's getting a little buy today as well, which is good. Good level for silver. Need to close above these wicks here though. If we close above that, then silver will go on a decent run, at least up to 31.8. I would say. US oil should still be going, yeah. Bit of a rejection off 200 there. Still an hour and a half to go, but kind of expect oil to find a little bit of a pullback here. But I would also suggest that it's probably not going to pull back much past the $71 mark. Over the next few days. So yeah, that's if it actually breaks back within that $71 mark and confirms it, then I would actually suggest oil's going to go a lot lower because that would look a bit like a Wyckoff distribution and almost like a bear flag as well. Gigantic bear flag, just with a bit of a fake out here. But for the time being, oil actually momentum and BBWP wise looks like it could actually break a lot higher. Just based on that alone, it looks really quite strong. The only thing is, last time we had, let's see if we can have a look. Yeah, it's not really. Yeah, I mean, it did it there. Just here was a similar sort of read in terms of BBWP and stochastic momentum. So yeah, some pullbacks potentially, but oil's looking stronger than not. Dixie, it's still heading towards that target of 110. Strong move on Dixie too. Like it could actually go past 110 with the strength of that move. I'd be surprised, a little bit surprised, but there is another target here, vector candle target up around 111, 112. Decent sort of volume level in there at the 112 mark as well. That, like, when Dixie crashes, it's going to crash pretty hard and over a fairly long time. But for the time being, no real crash in sight. Yeah, we haven't been this high in a while. Apart from this spike here, 2022. That's just, it's putting the pressure on the rest of the world. Aussie dollar's still struggling around that level. Looks like it wants to find some support, but yeah. Got a few things coming out next week which could move the markets. Mm. Wow, euro. What was our target again from yesterday? It was down around the parity level. We smashed through those levels. Yeah, from memory, we had something around here. Yeah, this vector candle parity. I mean, obviously you've got some more vectors below that haven't been recovered as well. But yeah, I think we do a measured move, and I would actually measure this on the distribution. Conservative measure would be that, and then a break would bring us back into the parity level. But euro is likely to keep going down. And I'm still not hearing any major news about um, like meltdown of big companies or anything like that either. Either they're hiding it or just hasn't started yet. It's probably why the Fed's injecting some liquidity at the moment. This is just in global liquidity is in free fall at the moment, though. Still want to see a turnaround in that before I get too excited about anything. Mag 7, they should technically come down quite a bit more. 2100. Tesla's been slammed. This is the level for Tesla, that 50 EMA, 356. Should find some support around 356. But may actually go a bit deeper. Just momentum's pretty bearish at the moment. Like Tesla can keep just going, just dropping after a decent pump. Which is typically what happens with Tesla. But you would kind of expect a little bit of a bounce here. Your resistance level's probably, like, if I had to guess on Tesla, you're going to get something like this. With some bounces along the way. It could just fall straight into this level too. 250. It's nuts that such a big stock can have a 50% drop on it relatively quickly. Might not happen like that either, but 356 is the first key level. Nvidia's still holding outside of the value area. It needs to keep holding that. But it needs to show strength too, and it's not showing that at the moment. Markets just look like they just want to pull back a little bit more. Apple has broken that trend line there. So yeah, the next target is definitely 237 on Apple. Needs to find some support there. Amazon. Yeah, Meta. Sorry, I've just glazed over Amazon. Yeah, it's holding. I don't expect it to hold too long. I think it should come into this 213 level, somewhere around there. SMCI, Stellantis, and Ford are still struggling. XJO. it might not bounce as high as I thought, just based on what the US market's doing. Could come into this level a bit quicker than that. And total crypto market cap is increasing, which is good. Getting a decent drop in this one. I want this to be hitting key levels as we're hitting key levels on Bitcoin as well. And I mean, that to be fair, that is actually a key level through there that it's just tagged today. So be watching Bitcoin fairly closely here. Longs are still increasing, which is good. Means dips will generally be bought up or are being bought up. Shorts have increased a little bit today. And shorts have stayed relatively high. So just got to be a little bit careful of that. Suggesting there is going to be some people shorting this pump. Ethereum had a decent day. Good bounce there off that point of control. Definitely seems to be a decent level, that point of control. So I do expect Ethereum to come up to 3,900 or thereabouts. But again, I think that's probably going to be met with a decent pullback. Unless we have a mini alt season as Bitcoin pulls back. Sol had a good day as well. Shit, I got to go, I think. Just bear with me a sec. Yeah, Sol, good day, but leaving a vector candle behind. Not great. I better go anyway. But for the time being, this rally looks like it's a real one. It's a good close if we close around here on Sol. Oh no, I'm right for a little bit. Yeah, good rally if we close around here, break above that 50 on a vector candle. That's a pretty good sign. But yeah, I'd probably see Sol at around 237 for some resistance, maybe a little bit lower. But AI got a pretty good bid yesterday, like some big buys. Sharp AI, FET got a bid. Al, decent pump. NMT, decent pump. Berry, I'm probably going to take that off my list, to be honest. So small. It's supposed to be an AI play, but it's not. Looks like a shit meme coin at the moment. I'll probably get rid of that. Sui AI actually had a down day, but kind of led the way as well. It's been pumping the last couple of days. Probably not a bad buy here. It's recovered that vector candle. If AI and the rest of the market keeps going, then you'd probably expect it to keep going. AI agent, good bid on that as well. Bit of selling, bit of take profit there though. I mean, you kind of expect that after a 30% move. Agent, good move on agent. That's actually probably a pretty good buy still, I would say, at that level. Momentum's low. BBWP will pick up. Grass, another good one. You're going to find some resistance, but if these break out, then I actually expect like an AI rally at the moment. Goat has been having a decent run the last few days as well. And near is an older coin, so you don't expect the moves to be as big, but it looks like it's got a bit in it as well. So A16Z, AI16Z, so which I think this tracks A16Z's AI plays. It's been pumping lately. Something I didn't pick up on until I looked at it yesterday. But yeah, it's getting a little overheated, but at the same time, these sort of things can run pretty hard. Virtuals had a bit of profit taking on it. It's 5 billion market cap at the moment, so feel a little bit careful of that one, but pullback should be met with buying demand, I would think. Whereas everything else is just hasn't seen the same amount of buying interest really. A little bit in gaming, a little bit, but AI seems to be the favorite this run. Gaming should still do okay long term, I think. I'll still be buying macro dips in gaming, I think. But the issue with gaming is there's so freaking many of them. So trying to buy underlying coins that are tech related that should actually get long term interest is where my head's at. That's probably not a bad level for Sol. Could come back a little more into these vectors, but Sol's looking okay there. I'm just not sure if it's going to have the interest long term. All right, that'll do for today. I'll catch you later. Generally, stock market looks bearish, crypto looks bullish, at least for the next few days on both. I will catch you later.